Okay, I think we have the attendees now, so I start again. Okay, so now we're good to go. So a very warm welcome to everyone, to all the everyone who joined us this afternoon for our presentation, our webinar, CMCO compliant webinar about Malaysia's federal budget 2021. We're very excited about sharing this with you today, and we're hoping that it will be an informative and interactive session. So we're just almost overwhelmed by the great deal of interest. So currently we have nearly 60 attendees here today, wanting to know more about the budget. So that's great. Let me just introduce the contributors today and give you maybe just 2 minutes about the schedule today, what we're going to do today. So my name is Michael Wekesa. I'm the head of office here for Rödl partner in Kuala Lumpur, and this event today is jointly hosted by Rödl partner here in Malaysia and Advantage Austria. So as the first speaker, who is going to speak to us in a minute, we've got Mr. Reinhard Zimmermann, who is the commercial counselor with the Austrian Embassy and also the head of Advantage Austria here in Kuala Lumpur. This will be the first part. Then I will just say a couple of sentences about Rödl partner and what we do, and then we will move on to the main presentation of today, which is obviously the budget. Federal budget of Malaysia. There we have two experts from our team here in Kuala Lumpur. We've got my colleague Priya Selvanathan, who is the head of tax and head of for Malaysia and head of transfer pricing for Asia Pacific, who will be supported by Jing Ong, who is a senior tax consultant here within our tax team in Kuala Lumpur. Following this, you will be able to, we will have a question and answer session. I mean, there are tools within the within this GoTo webinar software where questions can be posted. And then at the end, we might, depending on the time, we may not be able to deal with all the questions. However, we will definitely pick a few questions which will be of interest to everyone, and try to have as much of an interactive session as possible. So that's so much for the introduction. Thank you very much again for joining us. And for now, I give the floor to Mr. Zimmermann.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wekesa. I hope everybody can hear and see me. Yes, everything fine? Good. Well, so once again, thank you very much for this opportunity to have this webinar together with our legal consultants of competence, Rödl & Partner here in Malaysia. Yes, thanks for my short introduction as head of Advantage Austria here in Malaysia, in charge not only for Malaysia but also Brunei. But this day is a big focus on Malaysia, especially on the budget 2021, which we expect to be accepted in the parliament. You know, it's just a budget proposal. It's not yet the budget 2021, which has to pass still the federal parliament here. And with a political situation, this will not be easy to be negotiated. Nevertheless, you may have also read that the Malaysian king strongly advises the political forces to put their hands together in this critical situation of the pandemic. So I really hope and think that in the next weeks the budget will be accepted after certain renegotiations and amendments, I'm sure. Well, I think this budget, if it comes like this, is an attractive budget. It is for sure covering a lot of costs which has the government, but they are also trying to help economies, the businesses, as well as the population to recover from the pandemic in order to have a better life, but also have a better business. It's not so easy. At the same time, it's a budget which goes into direction of deficit spending, and I suppose it will not be only for 2021. They foresee certain special vehicles. I do not want to go too much into depth because I'm sure the experts from Rödl & Partner will explain in much more detail what has to come up. But what is interesting from my side, or for maybe Austrian companies being interested to come to Malaysia as well as to expand their businesses here, is they come up with special vehicles in order to motivate foreign companies to relocate to Malaysia as well as to expand their activities, tax exemptions, tax allowances, etc. Some of them are much more a kind of extension which would have finished in 2020. Some of them are quite higher and interesting. At the other side, we can be also aware that a lot of countries around of Malaysia will do similar things. So there will be a stiff competition in order to attract the most interesting investments. And I really hope and I think that the Malaysian government is aware of that and will try its best to build an attractive package for foreign companies as well as existing companies here in Malaysia. There are interesting funds like the High Technology Fund, which should be interesting for bringing in technological and innovative companies. There should be also interest in bringing in more global trading centers as well as regional hubs in order to use Malaysia as a location for Asia Pacific, for instance. The higher investments will get more allowances and tax exemptions, but I see they also go into the direction for regional sales offices. There will be more possibilities for higher value-added activities in Malaysia, etc., etc. And I think that they also go into depth for making more attractive the returning expert program for Malaysians, so the talents coming back from abroad to Malaysia. So this could be also interesting for Austrian companies to have experienced Malaysians to be employed. So I think that's sufficient from my side. I would like to hand over back again to Mr. Wickes. Thank you very much again that I have the opportunity to partner here with you, and I'm looking forward to the experts' presentations. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for the interesting and enlightening introduction, showing us or sharing with us the expectation of foreign companies and investors coming into Malaysia. I think we can fully support this view. I mean, generally speaking, we always look at the budget from the perspective of our clients, which are mostly either foreign investors or subsidiaries of foreign companies here in Malaysia. So it's all about, not all about, but it's a lot about FDI and so on. And I think from our point of view, it's probably, you can't probably say that on this occasion the budget contains some big banks in terms of FDI, sweeping changes and so on. However, there are a number of things which we're going to see in a minute, which may be of interest to a specific company and in specific circumstances. So it's probably still worthwhile having a look and checking whether this biggest budget ever, I believe it is, will have any impact on your business. So maybe just a couple of sentences about Rödl & Partner. Rödl & Partner, we are a corporate services and professional service firm headquartered in Germany. We have a substantial operation here in Southeast Asia. So we cover the entire region with our own offices, save for Laos and Cambodia. So we do have big offices in Vietnam and in Myanmar and Thailand, Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia. And being what we do, we offer a one-stop service in most areas. which means areas of professional services, which means that in all these offices we support our clients in the area of audit, BPO, which is mostly accounting and payroll, tax advisory, and also legal. So here in Malaysia, we have our main office in Kuala Lumpur, and a working point and a second office which is located in Penang, and as all the other in all the other destinations, Southeast Asia, we do offer these 4 services, which again is accounting and tax advisory, and together with our cooperation partners here in Malaysia, also legal services and audit services. So I think that's it from me for now, and please feel free to type in your questions in the chat window, which we will pick up during the presentation and deal with at the end of the presentation. And now I hand over to my colleague Priya to kick us off on the budget 2021.
All right, thanks, Michael. Could we go to the next slide, please? So just very briefly, the agenda for today will run through the economic outlook for 2021 very quickly, some of the key budget touch points, and then the main details of the presentation will be on the key tax proposals. As mentioned earlier, all of these are just still proposals and are still being tabled at the Parliament. So we do expect to see some changes to some of these proposals before it is finally approved at the Parliament's level. So moving on to the economic outlook for 2021. Yeah, so for the economic outlook for 2021 in the budget 2021, it's a budget that is designed to meet the immediate needs of the country, to encourage recovery whilst also protecting the most vulnerable groups in the country through the continuation of targeted stimulus measures. As a result of the various stimulus packages announced throughout the year and the budget 2021 proposals, the government is projecting the economy to grow between 6.5% to 7.5% in 2021. This would present a marked improvement from the projected contraction of 4.5% in 2020 due to the pandemic. However, of course, the favorable outlook for 2021 definitely hinges on the successful containment of the pandemic and the sustained recovery in external demand. So effectively in Malaysia, they are projecting a V-shaped recovery. I know there's been a lot of talk of, whether you'll see a V-shaped recovery, a U-shaped recovery. So in Malaysia, they are predicting a V-shaped recovery, but in reality, this will definitely depend on, how the pandemic is contained and how things go on moving forward. So on the next slide, we have the major sectors that will see are expected to see some growth as well in 2021. So all the in 2020, all the major sectors are estimated to see quite a big contraction. In 2021, they are again expected to see somewhat of a V-shaped recovery and attain growth rates that are similar to that prior to the pandemic, driven, of course, by the recovery of global demand as well as the resumption of domestic economic activities. So that, in effect, is what the economic outlook is expected to look like in 2021. So we are expecting a recovery that is fairly fast to go back to pre-pandemic growth rates. So on the next slide here, we talk about some of the budget touch points. And to touch on what are some of the key messages that was hope to be achieved by the Budget 2021. Budget 2021 is themed as resilient as one and together we triumph, which focuses on three main goals, which is the rakyat's well-being, so the people's well-being, business continuity, and economic resilience. And within these three main goals are 16 core strategies, which you will see on this slide. So Budget 2021 aims to strike a balance between managing fiscal sustainability, ensuring the well-being of the public, as well as reviving the economy. There are measures being introduced to protect the well-being of the most vulnerable groups, generating and retaining employment and jobs via reskilling and upskilling programs, extensions of the wage subsidy program, and short-term employment programs. Under the goal of business continuity, there are measures being introduced to drive investments in key sectors by providing targeted incentives, supporting SMEs, and continued prioritizations towards automation and digitalization. And finally, under the banner of economic resilience, the goal here is to enhance the role of the government-linked companies and the civil service as well, while at the same time ensuring the sustainable development growth and driving sustainable growth trajectory. And on the next slide here, we go into a bit more detail on what would actually entail in terms of retaining jobs and developing new workforce. So one of the key issues faced this year due to the pandemic was the sudden increased unemployment rate. Due to the lockdown measures, a lot of small businesses could not sustain the businesses, so there was a sudden increase in the unemployment rate. So with this, the government will allocate 3.7 billion ringgits to implement the Employment Generation Guarantee Scheme, also known as Jana Kerja, which is aimed to provide 500,000 new job opportunities, including providing skill development and retraining programs. In the Prihatin package, which was introduced in March 2020, the government introduced the wage subsidy program. Under this program, which was then extended in the subsequent stimulus packages, but then ended on the 30th of September 2020. So under Budget 2021, it is now again proposed that the wage subsidy program be extended for a further 3 months, but this time with a more targeted approach towards the tourism sector and also the retail sector. In the next part, there will be also on generating employment. 1.5 billion ringgit will be allocated to provide 600 ringgit per month for workers earning RM 4,000 and below. The previous limit of 200 employees per application will now be increased to 500 employees. In addition to generate employment, the government is proposing to introduce the short-term employment program, which is the My Step, with an allocation of 700 million ringgit to offer 50,000 job opportunities on a contract basis in the public sector with government-linked companies. And finally, another key measure for generating employment is the continuing of hiring incentive program under SOCSO's Penjana Kerjaya. Under this incentive for employers hiring employees earning Malaysian ringgit 1,500 and above per month, it's proposed that 40% of the monthly income for a period of 6 months, subject to a maximum of 4,000 ringgit per month, will be paid by SOCSO. For employers hiring disabled, long-term unemployed, and retrenched workers, an additional incentive equivalent to 20% of the employee's income for a period of 6 months. And the last incentive under this Penjana Kerjaya would be a new one, which is for hiring of local workers in sectors with high reliance on foreign workers such as construction and plantation, an incentive of 6% of monthly wages for a period of 6 months, of which 40% will be channeled to the employers and 20% will be channeled to the workers as a wage top-up. So that is, in a nutshell, what are some of the key touch points that the budget is focused on. So it's very much a people-focused budget to make sure that the welfare of the people are being taken care of, while at the same time also not forgetting the development and the growth of the economy as well. So I will now pass it over to my colleague Jean, who will take you through the tax proposals.
Thank you, Priya. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jean. I'll be highlighting the key tax proposals under the Budget 2021. The Budget 2021 is an expansionary budget. As such, we do not, as expected, we do not expect many new tax proposals introduced, but an extension and expansion of the current tax incentives. First, we will look into the corporate income tax and tax incentives proposals, followed by the personal income tax proposals and indirect tax proposals. And lastly, we'll look into the exemptions for stamp duty. So what do we have under our budget 2021? First, to spur the economic recovery and to create a multiplier effect to the economy, the tax incentives for companies relocating their operations to Malaysia is expanded to selected services. Under this incentive, new companies can enjoy 0% to 10% income tax rate for up to 10 years, and existing companies with new services segment will be able to enjoy 10% income tax rate up to 10 years. The effective date for the application for this incentive are applications received by MIDA by 31st December 2022 for manufacturing sector, and 7th November 2022 to 31st December 2022 for the selected services sector. The services sector includes provision of technology solution services, provision of infrastructure and technology for cloud computing, research and development, design and development activities, medical devices testing, laboratory and clinical trials, and any services or manufacturing related services determined by the Ministry of Finance. Next, it is the Global Trading Center. To enhance and simplify the tax incentive for trading activities previously under the Principal Hub incentives, a new incentive is introduced, which is the Global Trading Center. It is proposed that a 10% income tax rate for a period of 5 years and renewable for another 5 years for Global Trading Center. As this is something new, we expect MIDA to issue the guidelines in due course. The effective applications for this incentive are from 1st January 2021 to 31st December 2022. Next, we looked into the Principal Hub incentive. This incentive is not new, but under the existing Principal Hub incentive, new companies may enjoy 0% income tax rate for 5 years and renewable for another 5 years under Tier 1, and 5% income tax rate under Tier 2, while existing companies enjoy 10% income tax rate. It is proposed that the Principal Hub incentive is extended for another 2 years, and the minimum condition of the number of high-value job, annual operating expenditure, and number of key posts for renewal for the 2nd year to be relaxed. Let's move on to the next slide. The next incentive that we have is for manufacturers of pharmaceutical products, including vaccines. It is proposed that the manufacturers will be able to enjoy income tax rate of 0% to 10% for the first 10 years, and 10% for the next 10 years. Applications must be received by MIDA from 7 November 2020 to 31st December 2022. The next incentive is grants for green, sustainable, and responsible investment. to encourage issuance of SRI sukuk and bonds that meet green, social, and sustainability standards in Malaysia. The existing tax exemption on grants for green, sustainable, and responsible investment is expanded for a period of 5 years to all SRI sukuk and bonds. Applications are to be received from 1st January 2021 to 31st December 2025. The following are merely expansion of existing incentives to 31st December 2022. This includes the relocation incentives for manufacturing, maintenance, repair, and overhaul activities for aerospace, building and repair of ships, bionexus status company, and economic corridor, as well as the export of private healthcare services. Next, in the next slide, we have the extension of tax incentives for manufacturers of industrialized building system components. This incentive is to encourage technology adaptation in the construction sector through the usage of IBS. The current incentive given based on 2 categories is extended for another 5 years. The 2 categories under the current incentive will be merged, whereby companies are only required to produce at least 3 basic components of IBS or IBS system that use 3 basic IBS components. This company will be given 60% income investment tax allowance on qualifying capital expenditure incurred within the 5 years to set off against 70% of statutory income for each year. The next incentive that we will look at is the tax incentive for commercialization of R&D. To create competitive R&D ecosystem and to encourage new R&D activities by public research institutions, including public higher learning institutions, as well as to enhance the role of private higher education institutions in producing high quality researchers and quality in R&D. This incentive is reintroduced for non-resource based R&D and expanded to include private higher education institutions with effect from 7 November 2020 until 31st December 2025. The investor company will be given tax deduction equivalent to the amount of investment given to the subsidiary that commercialized the R&D, while the subsidiary company that's commercialized the R&D will be given income tax exemption of 100% of statutory income for 10 years. Next, to encourage employers to provide job opportunities for senior citizen, ex-convicts, parolely supervised persons, and ex-drug dependents, the existing double deduction given on the remuneration payable by employer is extended for another 5 years until the year of assessment 2025. This is applicable for monthly remuneration not exceeding 4,000. All right. Now let's look into the key tax proposals for personal income tax. All right, to increase the disposable income of the middle income group, it is proposed that the income tax rate is reduced by 1% for chargeable income band of RM50,001 to RM70,000. This brings the current 14% to 13%, and this incentive is effective from the year of assessment 2021. The next proposal is applicable to non-Malaysian citizens in companies with relocation incentives. However, this is limited to 5 non-Malaysian citizens employed in key positions with monthly salary of not less than RM25,000. Applications are to be received from 7 November 2020 to 31st December 2021. The next incentive for personal tax is the income tax exemption for compensation for loss of employment. This exemption is increased to RM20,000 for each full year of service for the year of assessment 2020 and the year of assessment 2021. The next incentive that we will look at is returning expert program. The application period for the tax incentive under returning expert program is extended for a further 3 years. Under this incentive, the individual will be given a flat income tax rate of 15% on employment income. The next incentive that we'll look at is income tax relief for medical expenses for serious diseases for self, spouse, and children. This incentive, this tax relief is increased from RM6,000 to RM8,000 from the year of assessment 2021. On top of that, the scope of tax relief is expanded to include vaccination expenses. The next incentive is also being increased to 8,000, the income tax relief for medical treatment, special needs, and carer expenses incurred for parents. This incentive is also applicable from the year of assessment 2021. All right. The next tax relief that we will look at is the tax relief on lifestyle expenses. This tax relief is increased to RM3,000 from the year of assessment 2021. The scope of tax relief is expanded to include subscription for electronic newspaper. Next, it is the scope of tax relief for technical education fees. Expanded to include RM1,000 for upskilling and enhancement costs. The next tax relief that we have under the budget 2021 is the tax relief for disabled spouse, which is also being increased from the current RM3,500 to RM5,000 with effect from the year of assessment 2021. The next tax relief that we have is the tax relief on net annual savings in schemes Simpanan Pendidikan Nasional, being extended to the year of assessment 2022. And the tax relief on contribution to private retirement scheme is also being extended to the year of assessment 2025. That's all we have for personal income tax. Let's now look into the key tax proposals for indirect taxes and customs. To enhance the competitiveness and to meet the global trade dynamics, it is proposed that the current 10% limit on the value added and additional activities carried out in the free industrial zone and licensed manufacturing warehouse be increased to 40% of the company's annual sales value. Applications are to be submitted to the customs from 7 November 2020 onwards. The additional activities include research and development, product design, marketing for company with IPC status only, distribution for RDC status, quality control, testing and commissioning including calibration and configuration, labeling, packaging and repackaging, remanufacturing, repairing and servicing, and supply chain management, strategic procurement, operation, and total support solutions. Next, we have sales tax exemption for the purchase of locally assembled buses by bus operators extended to 31st December 2022. This incentive will help to reduce the burden of bus operators. All right. With effect from 1st January 2021, to ensure equal tax treatment on all types of cigarette and tobacco products, a 10% ad valorem excise duty will be imposed for all types of electronic and non-electronic smoking devices, including vape. Liquid or gel for vape or other smoking devices will be imposed with excise duty at 40 cents per millimeter. All right. Sales tax and import duty will be imposed on cigarettes and tobacco products in all duty-free islands and any free zones. Next, it's the tourism tax. To ensure a level playing field for bookings made directly with the registered accommodation premises operators and via online platform providers, it is proposed that the tourism tax be extended to accommodation premises booked through online platform providers. This is with effect from 1st July 2021. The next incentive relates to the current authorized economic operator facility. Currently, the Royal Malaysian Customs Department grants AEO status to qualifying importers, exporters, manufacturers, and traders in Malaysia. It is proposed that AEO to be implemented national level and expanded to cover logistics service providers and approved warehouse operators. This initiative is to increase the use of the AEO facility to enhance efficiency of cross-border trade. Now let's look at the exemptions that we have for stamp duty. There are no new exemptions, incentives for stamp duty, but an extension of existing stamp duty exemptions until 31st December 2025. This includes the following instruments: exchange traded fund. Exemption will be given on contract notes executed for trading of ETF approved by the Securities Commission. Next, stamp duty exemption on instrument of transfer and loan agreement for the purchase of first residential property up to RM500,000. This is to encourage first residential home ownership by Malaysian citizens. The next exemption would be the stamp duty exemption on insurance policies and takaful certificates for pelindungan tenang products. This exemption is to encourage more low-income groups to have insurance and takaful coverage. That's all the incentives that we have under the Budget 2021. Overall, Budget 2021 demonstrates the government's commitment to protect the livelihoods and welfare of the people. It is also primed to steer the economy towards the next phases of the 6R approach under the Economic Recovery Plan: recovery, revitalize, and reform. Thank you. I'll now pass it on to Michael.
Okay, here we go. Thank you very much for this interesting and enlightening presentation. So now, Mr. Zimmermann, maybe you want to join the panel in case there are any questions coming, which we can all together reply to. Here we go. Thank you for joining back. So I just kick off with a couple of questions which came to my mind, which are maybe, let's start with the very general ones. So, I mean, we looked in particular at the economic outlook, which is sort of the basis of the budget and the basis of the assumption of the government. So, what is the general feeling here? Is it too optimistic, or is it just right? Because what we see, maybe not the so-called V-shaped recovery is being predicted, but definitely a U-shaped recovery. And if you think about, currently we're still subject to a CMCO, which may or may not have a negative impact on businesses. There is a substantial tourism element, and always has been in Malaysia, which probably, if we are optimistic, will probably may pick up at some point later next year. But still, there are quite a few unknowns. So hence the general question: what is the general feeling? Is this too optimistic, or is it actually realistic? No, whoever wants to share some thoughts on this.
I may share some thoughts about that, but it's more I would say, my personal opinion than it could be any proven thing. As you also mentioned, that we will see what will happen in 2021. I think we have seen also the World Bank figures during this year, what they expected for growth rates of this year and next year, and then they had to put it more and more down. But at the same time, what we can see is the growth rates here in Southeast Asia and also then for Malaysia are much higher than in Europe. So I think in the midterm and also in the long term, the growth rates here in this region will be much higher than in Europe. And I think this could be already the best sign on a long-term base to come to this region, even if now there is a dip down, the dip will come up also. And I also think it will be much more the V shape and not a U shape.
Okay, and interesting. Please feel free to use the chat function to post any more questions if you have any. So there's one question which came through, which is a specific one in respect to healthcare services. Let me just have a look. So the question is, what services are being considered under the export of private healthcare services? Don't know, Jean, do you want to take this one? Maybe a couple of examples.
Currently, we have not been given what are the private healthcare services. We still need to wait for more details to be provided on what are the examples that fall under the private healthcare services, export of private healthcare services.
Okay, so this is basically a political announcement at this stage, and we will have to wait and see, as with many things in this and the previous budget, how things will be implemented and clarified and detailed in subsequent legislation. Okay, so thank you for that. One more question, maybe of a general nature, would be so we discussed the general prediction of the recovery. If we have a look at the impact of the budget, in particular on foreign companies and foreign investors, Mr. Zimmermann mentioned at the beginning, there is a global race for investors and foreign investment, as we know. So does anyone have views about whether the current budget for 2021 will be sufficient to attract additional companies, or whether there are things which should be added, or maybe should be bolder, or anything like that? I don't know if anyone from the panel has a view on the wish list of the foreign investor.
Well, maybe Priya, you start. Ladies first.
What I think would be interesting for foreign investors would be the relocation incentive that was introduced under one of the stimulus packages, and now has been expanded to the service sector as well. Because while initially that was only for manufacturing companies and fairly restrictive in terms of the conditions, it's now been expanded to the services sector as well. I think that could be quite interesting. And then also the global trading center incentive as well could be quite interesting for foreign investors as well.
What I would like to mention is that Malaysia has to have a strategy which kind of investments they would like to attract. And I still have the impression they are speaking a lot about high value investments here in Malaysia, but finally the incentives go much more into that direction in order to create a lot of jobs and not really to have high value. So then finally they cannot say that they are let's say the cheaper version of Singapore. There are some indications that they go into that direction for attracting higher technology investments to relocate to Malaysia. But when I see the tax incentives and tax allowances, it goes nevertheless much more into the direction of manufacturing, where a lot of labor is necessary. So I really hope that they rethink this, that they put higher attention to high technology investments, that Malaysia really can go the way up for a developed country.
Okay, thank you for the additional thoughts. So we have one more question which came through, which is more specific on the return. This is sort of a wider concept to the context to the question, but it's about the return of experts to Malaysia. So the question is basically there is now the program returning experts to Malaysia is being extended, but at the same time there seem to be additional burdens or maybe additional questions, loops to which companies go through if they want to hire foreign workers, expats, or generally foreigners. And the question is there sort of a certain trend visible that hiring foreigners will be harder in the future? So, I mean, I can kick us off maybe with a couple of sentences on this one, and then feel free to join in later. I think there are sort of two aspects to this. The first one is that yes, I think we have seen a certain, in particular, as part of the efforts of the government to limit the economic outflow of the pandemic and various lockdowns and so on. I think there is a general desire to keep as much business and income to the local market within reason, which I think is perfectly understandable. So we do have a number of so you do have a number of examples here. So, for example, there is the large-scale solar tender process, which is ongoing, which has sort of higher local content requirements and so on. So I think yes, that there is, I think, a focus of making sure that the jobs and business and income is available to the local market. And yes, we have seen a couple of initiatives which may make it a bit harder to companies to hire foreigners. At the same time, I think it's also important to remember that I mean, in the past decades, Malaysia has always been a very open destination compared to its neighbors and other countries worldwide to foreign investment, and generally it's been comparatively easy to hire foreigners. And also at the same time, I think it's quite important to mention that a lot of these announcements are being currently made. But I think we should also recognize that the government does a lot of listening. So I think the proposals are made, and then, for example, chambers of commerce go to the government and discuss this proposal and say, well, maybe this is not the best idea. So generally, yes, we understand the purpose of what is being done, but maybe it's not the best execution of it. And I think generally we can say that the government is willing to listen, which I think is a good thing. And while the concepts behind these restrictions are sort of understandable, and partly, I'm also very much hoping that the execution of it will be fine-tuned and improved after listening to stakeholders and like chambers of commerce. I don't know, anyone else wants to add anything to it?
Well, Mr. Vickers, I can sign this what you said. And I also see that unfortunately they come out with certain suggestions, and it sounds as it is already a law. And then finally start the negotiation. So frankly speaking, they should do it much more in an internal way to to ask their stakeholders, chambers, as you say, etc., their business associations, other ministries. Even other ministries were not really involved in that, in order to find the best solution for that, and to make it in a way that it is feasible and helps the case. So this is unfortunately a little bit the way of doing it here in Malaysia, coming out and then adapting it to the necessities. I really hope that it will be adapted, but I think nevertheless some bad feelings were produced, and some of the negative effects may also stay. At the other side, you say Malaysia has a very positive or has had a very positive image as investment destination, and I think they will go a little bit more into this direction of giving more focus on employing local talent, but at the same time they understand also that they need experienced expatriates in order to improve the local talent too. So I think more or less it will continue as in the past, hopefully, but maybe with a little bit more bureaucratic steps.
Thank you very much for this additional input. One more question, which is about, I think that's already been covered, which is about with services and the private healthcare export. I think the answer was we clarified by the legislator, and the government were implementing it. So the last chance to ask a question, I guess. There we go. Other than that, thank you very much to our panelists today, and thank you very much to Advantage Austria for co-hosting the event, and thank you very much to Mr. Zimmermann for sharing his views on a number of hot topics which are of interest to our panelists. And obviously, finally, thank you very much to everyone who joined in today and listened to the presentation. If there are any other additional questions you may have, you've got our contact details on the current slide, so please feel free to contact us at any time. And so finally, thank you very much for attending, everyone. Stay safe and comply with the SOPs, and we'll see you around. Okay. Thank you very much. Bye.
Also, thank you very much for all the participants and for the experts team of Rödl & Partner. Have a nice evening or afternoon.